everybody, it's Melissa from Porch Swing Creations. Today I wanted to share with you my marker layering technique. So I've given you two options here so that you can see how I use it on just plain Whisper White cardstock and how I do it when I do it on watercolor paper. And if I have to choose, I'd always choose watercolor paper, and you'll see why. It's much easier to blend. But I just wanted to show that you can achieve similar results on different papers, so you always have the option. So we'll get started, and the first one I'm going to do is on the Whisper White cardstock. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to stamp your image, always using Stays On ink. This is a black ink, and I've stamped an image from the Secret Garden set, so it's this guy right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose my colors, and for this I've chosen to go with blues today. And what you want to do is choose colors that are very similar in tone. So depending on the image, if it's a leaf per se, you might only choose 2 colors of green. On a flower image, you might choose 3, 4, 5. It depends how deep the color you want the image to look when you're done. And you'll see what I mean as I work away on this one. The other thing that you're going to need is a blender pen. This is from Stampin Up, and it works with the water-based markers to help blend the color onto your cardstock and onto your watercolor paper. And I'll show you how that works as we go along. So the first color I'm going to start with is Soft Sky, and all you're going to do is color the entire petal. So we're going to go ahead and fill that in. I like to work one petal at a time on both cardstocks. It just makes blending easier. You'll see what I mean, because if you put the color down, because this is a water-based marker, it dries immediately. You have no time to play, you have no time for anything. It's dry the moment it hits the paper. So the more time that you can have to blend, the better. So work one petal at a time. So I've gone ahead and colored that entire petal. I'm just going to go back in with the same Soft Sky, and I'm going to start from the center out, and I'm just going to lightly add a little bit more color. Lay a little bit more color down there, and I'm going to leave the tip of that petal untouched, just with the first layer of the Soft Sky. With my blender pen, you just want to try to slowly fade away the line, and you're going to find immediately that the blender pens do not work the same way that they do on the Whisper White, or on the watercolor paper, sorry. So don't put too much of the blender pen down, because you'll find that your cardstock will immediately begin to pile and tear, and bad things will happen and your project will be ruined. So the next color that I'm going to take is Pool Party, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start in the center, but I don't want to cover up all of that Soft Sky that I've laid down. So I'm just going to lightly go into the center and work my way out just like I did before, maybe about 1/3 of the way up. And I'm going to take my blender pen, and I'm just going to slowly fade that color out, fade the line away. Okay, so after you've done that, we're going to take the Tempting Turquoise. And of course, the darker the colors that you progress to, the less you want to apply to your image. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to begin in the inside of that petal, and we're just going to lay a little bit of that color down. Immediately take that blender pen and just work to soften the edge. And you might not always be happy with the results on how it softens, but you can't do too much or it will definitely pill your paper. The last color that I'm going to use is Bermuda Bay. Same thing, start at the center and just lightly lay a little bit down, and just use that blender pen to slowly fade it away. And there you have one petal done. So I'll show you one more petal. So we begin with the Soft Sky, and you're going to want to color in that entire petal. Then with the same Soft Sky, you want to go into that center and work your way out and just lay one more layer of that color down, about 1/3 of the way up the petal. You can kind of move out to the sides a little bit. The whole point of this is you want to create some shadow and some shade. So naturally it would be darker in the center of the flower and leave the tip of the petal lighter. Next color is going to be that pool party again. So we're going to work from that center out, and we're just going to bring that color up. I kind of go up the edges of the petal a little bit, and then again just take that blender pen and just very softly blend those colors together. Tempting turquoise. Just going to add a little bit of that to the center. With that blender pen, just carefully blend the colors together. And there I don't know if you can see that on camera, but I've gotten a little bit of pilling because I've put a little bit too much blender pen down, which is an indication to stop. Bermuda Bay in the very, very center, and carefully blend it out. There you go, you have 2 petals done. So I will go ahead and I'll finish this one, and I will be right back. I'm back. I've got that all colored in, and I just want to show you up close. Can you see the way that that has pilled? That's just from overuse of the blender pen. That's just what cardstock will naturally do. It wants to bring those fibers up to the surface. So the last thing I'm going to do to finish this one is take a tangerine tangle marker, and I'm going to color in the center of that flower. And you could use a couple colors on this. I'm just choosing to use one, and I'm just going to darken this very center so that it looks like the tips are just a little bit lighter than the very center of the flower. And then the best tip that I've come across is to use a Sahara sand marker and just very carefully outline your image. And it just adds that little bit of dimension, and it really makes your images pop off the paper. Now of course, if you were going to cut this image out and apply it to a project, you would want to skip this step because it would be kind of pointless to do all this and then go ahead and cut it out. But it's great if you're doing a whole row of flowers across a page, or a person, or it just adds that little bit extra punch. So that's that one for you. So now I'll show you how I do it on watercolor paper. I'm going to use the exact same colors, just a little bit different technique, and you'll see how much quicker and easier it blends on the watercolor paper. So we'll set that one aside. So again, we're going to do the soft sky. The only difference this time that we're going to do is, instead of coloring in the entire petal when we begin, all we're going to do is cover about 1/3 of the way up of the petal, just like that. And then we're going to take our blender pen, and you're going to see as I go to the edge of that color, it just blends it so beautifully. So we'll go again in with the soft sky, and I'm just going to apply another coat, another layer of that color, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to blend away the lines and the edges, and I want to leave the very tip of that flower petal the lightest and keep my darkest into the center, just like we did with the last one. So I'll show you that again. We'll just cover about 1/3 of the way of the petal upwards, and we're going to blend away those lines. Go back in with the soft sky, and we're going to lay another layer of that color down at the base. And again, we're going to blend away that line. Okay. Same thing. I'll just quickly do the whole flower for you this time because it goes so much quicker than it does on regular cardstock. You have a little bit more give, a little bit more ease. It's just so much easier on watercolor paper. You also have better opportunity that if you want to jump to darker colors instead of doing the gradual progression, you can do so with watercolor paper. Whereas because it blends so nicely together, you don't have to go to the next closest color and work your way up, which can sometimes take, you know, 4 or 5 layers to get the look that you're going for, whereas you could probably do it in maybe 2 or 3 with using watercolor paper. So there, I've gone ahead and I've laid down all the soft sky. So just like in the last flower, I'm going to take Pool Party and I'm going to start in the center and I'm going to bring it up. And because these colors are so close together, you can't really tell a huge difference. So I'm going to bring that up about 1/3 of the way and I'm just going to blend away the color. You don't want to take away all your soft sky. You don't want to color in the entire image because then you would just have a colored image. You wouldn't have it looking like a watercolor image like what we're kind of going for. So same thing, you just want to lay it down at that base, bring it up part way, not covering that soft sky, and blend any lines away. You can see how much faster this goes, and is the most relaxing way to color as far as I'm concerned. When you get going, it takes a while, and it takes a little bit of practice, but once you do it a few times, it kind of comes natural. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done the Pool Party. So we're going to go back in with that Tempting Turquoise, and we're going to start in the center. And you don't want to obviously apply as much color, just like in the last instance, because you'll see how much farther this color wants to blend. The darker the color, the further it goes. So the less, the better in this circumstance. Just blend it outwards. It's okay to take it out a little bit, it just adds a little bit of depth. You can see how much depth the flower is getting now. Just kind of take away those lines. Okay. A couple more petals. And there you go, we've blended it all out. I should mention too, you've probably noticed me doing this a few times. The wonderful thing about these blender pens is when you color with them, if you have a little scratch pad beside you and you just mark your paper until the color's gone and you're ready to go on the next color and not have to worry about marking your previous work. So then we're going to take the Bermuda Bay and very, very center, guys, because you don't want it to be too dark, and blend that out. I might do a couple layers of that. There we go. There's a little bit more shade. I'll bring it out a little farther. I like how it looks. You can see every layer that you do, every color that you add, how much more realistic the flower starts to become. Okay. And play around with the colors. I mean, Stampin' Up has a wonderful selection of colors. You can make any color that you like. There's lots of colors to choose from and mix and match and make your own. Okay, so there, I've gone ahead and I've done all of my coloring. I'm just going to go in quickly and add that Tangerine Tango to the center, just like I did in the other flower. And I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to just take the tangerine and then I'm going to go into the center. And I'm just going to make it a little bit darker. I could have also just done in the center and then taken my blender pen and just shaded outwards, and that would have achieved the same sort of effect, just a little bit lighter. And just to show you how it all looks come together, I'll take the Sahara sand marker again and I'm just going to quickly outline the image. And there you have it. So I'll just show you now the difference again between the two. you can see how much more realistic the one on my right on the watercolor paper looks than on the cardstock. But it all depends on what look you're going for, what effect you want to achieve. I'll just zoom in here a little bit more so you can see. So I hope this has inspired you to try a little bit of marker layering on your next project. You've seen how simple and quick it is. It does take a little bit of practice, like I said before, but I think it's a really relaxing technique, and the results are pretty stunning because it looks pretty realistic. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.